This presentation is to launch our cloud services products in Singapore. If you look at Acronis in general, we are going through a lot of changes. So our cloud services revenue last quarter is about 20 times larger than the same quarter last year. And during this type of changes, there's a lot of confusion among our own employees and among our channel. About what do we sell, how do we sell, why do we sell, how to market it, and what products do we have available. I decided to actually do this presentation. It's primarily targeted to our close partners and to our employees. And we will make this presentation available online. The thing is that what I want to accomplish is that the employees, our salespeople, marketing people, channel people, sales engineers, and also our partners will be consistently talking in the same way about Acronis when they're meeting customers. Acronis officially is 12 years in business. It was founded here in Singapore in 2003. It's complicated with Acronis, as you would see, but that's our current desire to be. We have 23 offices in 18 countries. That's actually accurate information. And hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, 700 employees, 300 engineers, 30,000 partners, 300 OEMs. Over the last years, 500,000 businesses bought our products, which is a relatively significant number, about 5 million consumers. We think that in the world we have several tens of millions of users. And we are sold in 15 languages in 145 countries last year. So we're very, very global. Our headquarters is here in Singapore. Now, we really have 3 core products historically, which comprise probably right around 90%, 95% of our revenue. Acronis TrueImage, which is a personal backup, full image backup product, which is a market leader for full image backup globally. And it's a product we are most famous for. Acronis Backup, which is our backup for SMB, for large business selected workloads, and Acronis Access, which is our newest product, which is a file sharing and synchronization and secure access product, which we're selling for the last 3 years. And all these products are very, very good products. They're market-leading products in its categories, and that's actually what allows us to be profitable. We have a lot of awards for those products, and we hope to get many more awards in the coming years. We solve some specific problems with these products, and so these are examples of the solutions. But if you look at our company, we work in a very, very competitive market where we have dozens of competitors, and yet we are very profitable and we are growing. How can we be very profitable? That's because we have certain things in which we are the best. So we're number one in these 5 categories: disaster recovery, full image backup, endpoint backup, so backup of the PC, system deployment, and enterprise file syncing and sharing. And just in 2014, we sold about 3 million new licenses, and we have about 300,000 active corporate customers and 100,000 new corporate customers. And we have, of course, majority of our customers are SMBs, but we also have Fortune 500 companies. Some of them are listed here: Lufthansa, Shell, I think Chevron, Samsung, McKinsey are all our customers, Japan Finance Corporation. Now, why do we have market-leading products? Because we're actually in a very old backup space. We're quite innovative, and our products are based on very advanced Acronis data engine, which is 2 million lines of literally very complicated code, which we have created originally. And we're improving. We are first in many categories. We were first to launch image backup. We were first to recover image on dissimilar hardware using universal restore. We were first to introduce image recovery of live Windows Active Restore, and many, many other things which are listed on the slides where we were actually first. We have about 100 data protection patents. We are filing 50 patents a year right now, so we accelerated our innovation. We have about 25% of our R&D, which we spent, 25% of our revenue, which we spent on R&D, And 50% of our headcount, almost 50% of our headcount is actually engineers. Why do people buy our products? Because they're based on any data engine. What does it give to the products? Really, if you talk to our customers, and over the past 1 year, after I've restructured the company a little bit, I've spent a lot of time talking to customers and partners. And what I hear consistently, there are 3 reasons why they buy our products today. They are very fast for backup and recovery. So the fastest backup, fastest recovery, typically fastest in the category, fastest for Windows, for example. We are very easy to use. So again, even in a large business, you have a lot of situations when you have remote offices, you have remote stores where there is not enough IT expertise, and so the product has to be simple. And the flip side of it is that if it's not simple, recovery does not happen because the customer simply get confused how to do recovery. And finally, the universal restore on dissimilar hardware. That's some feature which really works for us really well. A lot of times our products are used for migration, not only just for backup and recovery, but also for migration from one hardware to another. That's a feature which we really polished over the past 10 years. And we have basically done universal restores thousands, tens of thousands, probably millions of times. Actually, if you look at my history, it was not really very related to Acronis in the past. And I just want to remind you, and I think it's important that we remind some of our partners of that history, because that's actually one of the things which makes us unique. I founded this company as Wsoft in the year 2000, which is today about 1,000 employees, actually 1,100, about $200 million in revenue as well. And it serves over 10,000 cloud hosting companies globally with probably about 15 million small businesses, which is significantly more than Acronis. Acronis serves about 500,000 businesses. And here we are touching on 15 million really small businesses. It's also famous for Parallels Desktop, which is a product which is used by 10% of Mac users. Now, in 2003, we split Acronis into a separate company, and I was not really involved in Acronis at all from 2007. However, I continued to be involved in cloud, and so my team was much of the team which we brought here to Acronis is a team which is carried forward from Parallels. As you guys know, lots of people from Parallels. More and more people from Parallels will join. But in 2010, I stopped being involved in Parallels, and I founded Runa Capital. And Runa Capital is also a fund which is very, very active in the cloud services. It's invested in all these companies which are very famous in a cloud services space. In particularly, Nginx, Cloud Linux, and MariaDB are literally used on millions of servers. I think MariaDB on 2 million servers today, MySQL probably on 20 million servers. And they're literally touching every person in this world who ever touches IT. You know, apparently, of course, not every person in the world is using IT. I think people think that it's about 2-3 billion people who are currently IT users in the world. There is still around 4 billion people who don't use IT at all. Imagine that. Crazy, huh? You know, I was just talking to Pasha here. He's running Parallels for APG. And we sort of don't remember that there was a time when there was no iPad. But actually, there was no iPad in 2010. iPad first appeared in 2010, just 5 years ago. And so I continued with cloud in Runa. Now, in 2013, I came back to Acronis. And at that time, Acronis basically had no working cloud strategy. The cloud revenue was less than $1 million. I believe about $500,000 in the quarter when I specifically came back. So basically zero, which is less than 0.5% of Acronis revenue. So why? Well, first of all, by now I realize, and at that time I thought, that there are a number of trends which are really changing the world. And when you read a book of somebody like Bill Gates in the 90s, he wrote the book Road Ahead. I don't know, anybody read this book here? Pasha, you're from Microsoft. You're supposed to read the book. OK, so he talked about the fact that in the 90s, IT is just at a very early stage. And it's like didn't do anything. And to be honest, at that time, when I read this book, I wasn't that sophisticated. I was thinking, bullshit. I mean, come on. It's used already by everybody, right? But we know that definitely it's not the case. And now we have all these trends which are changing the world significantly more. So cloud mobility social, very familiar trends in the past 10 years. 3D printing, which is making everything digital. Digital money, so no more money, no more credit cards, everything digital. Internet of Things, well, effectively that makes every device, like a lamp, or like, I don't know, like a battery, like everything connected to internet and generate data. Wearable technology, so we have things on us which constantly measure everything we do, again generating data. Big data, which is something which is making sense of all of it, which is really changing the world in a way, how people operate, for example, airline industry or oil production industries, and apparently many other things. And artificial intelligence eventually, one thing which is true about all these things, they all generate much more data. Now, so this is a trend about the amount of data in the world. The amount of digital data is growing 125% per year. Crazy. Actually, it's growing much faster than the amount of the world to be able to consume and store it. You know, that's some interesting piece of information. NSA, wonderful national security agency, which is made very popular in the past 5 years with various disclosures, touches about 1.6% of internet traffic every day, so just 1.6%, not 100%. So you're quite safe, but it's about 45 petabytes per day. I think it's probably 1 year ago. And amount of data which is created by people until the year 2000 is now created in 10 minutes. And it's accelerating, constantly accelerating. So in several years, it will be in 1 minute. And so people always think whether singularity is near. That's a controversial philosophical topic. And there is a lot of things about singularity. One of the things about singularity is that humans will become irrelevant. Like imagine there are cells in your body. They are sort of alive, but they are not really alive. We don't think that they are alive, right? Humans are alive. Now humans become sort of like the cells like this, because there will be like a super intelligence for which humans will be really irrelevant. And by the way, it might already exist, right? But important thing, it's that singularity means that everything in the world becomes digital. Everything in the world becomes data. And this data is becoming more and more valuable. Now, the next thing which is important is that people actually don't think about if data loss will happen. But data loss always happens. And it's not only a question if it will happen, but when. There's lots of different reasons for data loss. Hacker, force reveal, user mistakes, viruses, hardware failure, phishing, media left behind, natural disasters, theft. I was actually presenting this manually to a number of people in US, and I realized that every small business in US, I don't think it happens in Singapore quite as much, once in 10 years experience theft. So people steal something from small business, and quite often they steal everything which is available. That's why they have insurance against theft. And when they steal everything, if they actually do backup of their data on premise, they steal backup together with things which they did backup. And so that's one of the reasons the small businesses are like, yeah, we want to back up somewhere else, to the cloud, because we don't want the theft to actually kill our backup as well. And this is just some actual statistics. This is a statistic for Google. First year failure starts for 150 racks cluster. I think in case of Google, that would be right around 6,000 servers. So 1,000 server failures in the first year. So server failures actually do happen. Thousands of hard drive failures in the first year. And one power distribution unit will fail in the first year, and 20 racks will fail, 6 hours downtime. So again, when you have a single server, it might never fail until you throw it away. But if you have 10 servers, it will for sure happen with one of them. If you have 1,000 servers, it's just a daily routine. This is a Microsoft research data. Server failure is average 8% per year. So you just need to have 12 servers to be 100% sure, almost 100% sure that one server will fail, and 3% per year for disks. And again, I continue to emphasize that people talk about the fact that now you use SSDs, and so SSDs are safe. Not really. SSDs have the same failure rate as normal disks, and they're more dangerous because with a normal disk, there are special companies which can pull out the disk itself and sort of read the data. With SSD, when it fails, quite often that's it. You're dead. There is no data. Data is completely lost. And failure rate is the same. And that's just one of the our own statistic from Host Europe. They have about 60,000 servers. They experience 5 server failures every day. And they experience 15 hard disk drives failures every day. Well, when data is lost, it's never good. Money could be lost. For many people, downtime is money. Imagine a production line. Production line down, money lost. Imagine a law firm, billing per hour, especially during the lawsuit. Money is lost if the time is lost. And generally, it's important to notice that most valuable part of this world is human time, and there is not so much time. Productive time for a human is around 100,000 to 200,000 hours total, and 10 hours for 100 million euros is sort of 10,000 lives lost. And so there is nothing to gain when you lose data, except perhaps a bad fame. And this is just some examples of situation when data was lost. T-Mobile's issued big apology to 800,000 Sidekick users for losing their data. Pixar accidentally deleted Toy Story 2 and was able to restore it from accidental backup copy from home PC. So it was a good accident. We actually have the movie, and it's not double budget. CodeSpaces, which was 7 years old, hosting provider, was closed after losing data. It was hosting the source code for multiple software companies. Flight simulator site, FSIM, was wiped out by hackers. This is HP, Nike, Oracle, Hershey experienced major data loss during ERP software upgrades, and that's 8 to 20% stock dips in their case. Now, actually, that is quite well known that it's very bad to lose data, and that's why backup is so established market. So first backup was done in 1951, 64 years ago. And this is a cluster which backed up Apollo 11 mission, which was 1967. And that's why backup strategies and practices were developed and improved since early 60s, when magnetic tapes became popular. And so by now, everybody is expecting, in the large business especially, relatively complete and relatively sophisticated backup solution. It sounds very simple, but it's not really simple, and it is quite sophisticated. There is lots of bells and whistles about backup. There is 2 things about backup which are very important and very rarely understood outside of specialized people who actually do backup, is that backup is about these 2 things. It's about recovery point objective, and it's about recovery time objective. These are 2 very important things. And generally, backup itself is quite a stupid activity, right? It's like you copy files. So you can copy files using your file manager. Why do you need any kind of software for it? But reality is that it's sort of like living. So you can live in a tent. It's totally possible to live in a tent. I mean, in Singapore, it will be a little bit hot and sometimes wet. In Russia, you will need to wear sort of a little bit warm clothes. But you can live in a tent, apparently even in the South Pole. It will not necessarily be very convenient to grow the family. And same with backup. You can actually live with a bad backup tool. And in that case, if there is a data failure, you will lose several days or several weeks of data. And if there is a data failure or system failure, it will take you many hours or even days to bring the system back to operation. And in OK situation, you will lose 1 day of data, so last day of transactions. So imagine for accounting department, we have some accounting people here. You were entering something for a day, and then you will restore from backup. You will have to re-enter it. Not really perfect, but sort of sometimes OK. And you will wait for less than 1 hour for restore. And with a great backup and disaster recovery solution, it really takes less than 15 minutes. You lose only 15 minutes, or maybe 10 minutes, in some cases a minute, of your last entrances. And you can recover in 1 or 2 minutes. And so the difference between bad backup or no backup, OK backup and great backup is just this. But this is quite a dramatic difference. And you accomplish it by doing this 8 things really, really well. You have to be able to back up any data source, because in many cases, the usage of the application, the data which you actually can perceive is collected from multiple data sources. You need to protect all of the data sources. And you need to understand these data sources really well. You need to be able to restore it in a variety of very granular fashion ways. Because the way how you accomplish very short RTO is by restoring only what's broken. Imagine you have a terabyte disk. And imagine you broke one file. You don't restore the full disk. Well, imagine it's a 10 gigabyte disk, 10 gigabyte file. Well, if only a few blocks of this file are broken, if you restore only a few blocks, it's much faster than actually restoring 10 gigabyte. And the same relates to backup. Transferring the data really, really fast. It's one of the things is during backup time, you can do compression and you can do deduplication, but it takes CPU time. And so if you have a production server and you're taking too much time on that server, you cannot do backup too often. And so you have to optimize your transfer dates. You have to store on a variety of different media. That is to be efficient and, again, to be able to restore correctly. You have to ensure that it's consistent and recoverable. Remember the statistics about the server failure. It happens once in 12 years. Well, so basically what happens is that for 12 years, you do some mundane procedure and you never use it. And then in 10 years, you suddenly experience data failure. At that point, you try to restore. And what you find out is your data is broken. And so in order for backup tool to work, it has to be sort of triple, quadruple sure that the data is consistent and it's possible to recover. For the very same thing, you need to monitor and audit because you need to report that the backup actually happened. And you need to see that it happened. In many businesses, it's also a compliance issue. You need to make sure that's encrypted and it's not accessible by everyone, especially in the cloud environment, but also in the large business environment. And you need to integrate with other systems. And we do all of that, by the way. Now, actually, that's not enough because backup is just backing up data. Now, when you have a failure, you also need to have a replacement hardware, and you need to actually do recovery. And somebody has to do it. And so disaster recovery is backup, but it's recovery after disaster not going to happen automatically. And so you need to have a disaster recovery. You also need to not only back up the data to ensure data safety, but you need to secure the data, and you need to make sure it's private. You need to archive the data because it makes less of your data, and it also decreases RPO and RTO, and also makes it easier to find data. One of the ways to actually lose data is just to know that it exists somewhere, but not being able to find it. So you need to do e-discovery. And finally, you need to do a lot of other things, such as storing, transferring, managing, repairing, monitoring. So overall, disaster recovery and data protection is much more than just backup. It's sort of like a 5-star hotel, like this Hotel Budapest in my example, where it's not just room and a bed, but it's also dozens and hundreds of different services, such as, for example, this beautiful cakes. It's part of a hotel service, and that's actually what makes it more valuable. Now, there is one thing which is interesting, and I will continue to use this analogy, and will continue to use it in marketing, is that there are some things which people are ready to die for. They're ready to do a lot for, to pay a lot, to wait a long time, to get very little small thing out of it, like love. Because it's a basic human instinct. It's a basic psychology. People will do lots of things for basic human instincts. But there are some other important things, like just toothbrushing, which are very, very important, but people will not really be ready to do too much for it. And so it has to be very easy to do toothbrushing. Imagine you will need to stand on your head to do toothbrushing. Not so many people will do it, right? So it has to be real easy. It has to be complete. It will not make sense to just sort of protect one tooth, right? Imagine you sort of end up with two teeth in your mouth, and everything else fall off, or that's not going to be very useful. And so that is very similar with backup. It has to be easy, and it has to be complete. All workloads, all protection policies, and not just backup. And finally, it has to be efficient. It has to be high performance. It has to be fast to configure and manage, and has to be low TCO. Again, imagine it will cost you $50,000 a year to do toothbrushing. I would see many people here not doing toothbrushing at that point. $5,000, probably you will do it here in Singapore. will be slightly bitchy about it because it's really a lot of money. But 500, everybody will do it here, but not in every country. $50, everybody will do it almost in every country, but perhaps not in every country altogether. $5, yes, that works for everyone. And so that's the same with data protection. In order for it to be really used, it has to be easy, complete, and safe, and efficient. Now, before cloud arrived, it was not really that. It was not really at all. It was, imagine you have 100 customers, and we are talking to partners here. And so that's a very typical Acronis customer, 1 to 5 servers, 10 to 50 workstations. Or maybe it's a large enterprise with many departments like this. And so in order to do backup, they will need to buy backup software, and it's only $520,000 of CapEx and only $60,000 of OpEx. Well, now, in addition, in order for backup to really work, they also have to buy backup hardware, network, power and cooling, data center shell, and most importantly, they need to hire people who will make sure that this backup actually works. So at the end of the day, it's very difficult. You have to build your own solution. And even doing backup is difficult. And that's why many small businesses don't do backup. And many workloads, even a large business, are not protected. It's incomplete. In order to do disaster recovery, I mean, today I actually was meeting director of IT for Gazprom. Gazprom is one of the largest oil companies in the world. And I think it has experienced terrible loss of profit. So right now, profit is only $30 billion. So it's very small. It's a really poor company. and I was talking about the fact that they should have a disaster recovery version of all of their global infrastructure in Singapore. And the IT tech said, well, that's expensive. It's really expensive because we'll have to keep a spare copy of all of our infrastructure. That's true. And most of the time, that copy will not be used. And that's why people don't do disaster recovery. They just do backup. And finally, it's very expensive. So that's total cost is actually $15 million, even though software cost is only $700,000 over these 3 years. So it's much more expensive. So you should think about it from standpoint of the total size of the market. I have a slide on this later. Now, interesting thing is another trend which happened recently, and it's happening very rapidly, is that upload speed is really growing very, very quickly. And this is just an example of Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. So it was 20 hours to upload 200 gigabytes 3 years ago. It's 4.4 hours right now, and it will be 1.5 hours in 3 years. And you can see that the trend is sort of similar. Hong Kong, 15, 4.5, 1.5, and Malaysia, 72, 49, and 16. So it's decreasing very rapidly. And in general, it's a little bit confusing slide. And again, we have our own customers and our own employees and partners listening. But it's because server space is also increasing. But servers are only growing 30%, where communication is tripling. And so uploading a single server becomes faster and faster and faster. Most of the buildings in the world will have a very, very fat fiber connected. And every business will have a very, very fast uplink, similar to downlink. And so with that, it's really possible to do better about backup. But before I go there, I want to give you the story. In a cloud industry, which is also a hosting industry, there is this iconic company which was founded based on the money, on the inheritance money by one of the founders who was a grandson of the person who created British Foods. And the story of British Foods is before the World War II, there was a bunch of people who, invented industrial production of bread. Before that, people would bake bread in individual bakeries. And these smart people, after the war, bought actually 15,700 private bakeries and converted them into storefronts and created 2 or 3 factories in UK. And that's how British Food was created. Right around 50 years later, the grandson of that person created Rackspace, which is a $2.5 billion company, which was founded in 1997, I believe, one of the first managed hosting, or 1998, one of the first managed hosting companies in the world. Today, they run around 125,000 servers in 7 data centers globally. and they actually do 50 petabytes of backup per month, and they store about 300 petabytes of backups. But why is it better to do industrial production? It's usually quite easy to explain, but and it's quite sort of intuitive, but it's very simple. First of all, the architecture of the system is very different. In the industrial production and in the cloud, you have a scale-out architecture. And scale-out architecture is different from scale-up architecture, is that it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as you grow the size. It's so expensive at a small size, but after certain size, it becomes cheaper than scale up, and then it becomes even cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and you buy commodity hardware for that architecture. You also have much better purchasing power. The largest companies in the world, they run tremendous amounts of thousands of servers. Rackspace has 125,000 servers, more than any company in the world except for the cloud companies. And they also buy electricity in bulk. They also buy people in bulk. They also buy real estate in bulk. They also buy network in bulk. So it's just cheaper for them to buy. And finally, they can automate all of it. They can share the hardware, and they can share the people, and they can automate as much as possible. And as a result, for example, Acronis backup service offered by them or by us, it's actually at the current price today is already about 50% cheaper for this 100 customers. So the list price for this 100 customers on the previous slide will be about 1/2. And yet, it's about 11 times more than just backup software, which is very important for partners. So your customers are buying backup software from you, but not necessarily they're buying storage from you for backup. And not necessarily, most certainly, they're not hiring your people to do backup. They spend much more internally, and so it's 11 times more. And not only it's 11 times more than backup software, so much more money for partners to make, but it's actually less for customer, and customer gets much better service. Because backup actually works in this case. It's guaranteed to work because any system works only as much as you tested it. And customer maybe has one restore per year, maybe one restore in 3 years. Well, when you run a system for 100 customers, that's 100 restores a year. And that means maybe once it didn't work for you and a customer, but thereafter you make it work. And that's basically why I'm back to Acronis. I believe today businesses spend only less than $10 billion on backup software. About actually $8 billion, $9 billion, depends on the analyst, you will get a different number. I mean, I wanted to ask IDC, but it's okay, I'll leave it at that. But they spend more than $100 billion a year, probably $150 billion a year on backup and disaster recovery overall. And they don't get it to work very well. It's a huge, huge, huge spend. And so cloud make it possible to actually make it work very well in much more efficient manner, much more complete manner, and much easier. And that's why I'm back here. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we have a very good indication of success. So I came back, less than 0.5% of our revenue. Right now, 20% of our revenue. Last year versus this year is 2,000% growth. And we're not talking about very small numbers. It's tens of millions of dollars. Our run rate is many tens of millions of dollars in the cloud, and it's growing 2,000%. And we believe it's a great opportunity for partners. And that's why we have event like this in Singapore. We obviously will make this material available for our partners all over the world. So $100 billion pie, really unhappy customers can be made happy. And usually you would think like, okay, fine, so it's $100 billion. So now we will save money for customers, so they will only spend $50 billion. But the way it usually happens, it increases the market size. So more customers do backup, and customers do backup of more workloads. And so since about 24 months, we focused Acronis on developing cloud services first. And we are starting to ship products this year. So the products which we are going to talk about, the opportunities we're going to talk about in this deck, is products which is a result of this effort. So all the engineers are developing cloud services first. And I've listened to my speech on the Audience Summit. We are the only company in backup and disaster recovery which has 300 people developing cloud backup. So we are the largest developer of cloud backup, cloud disaster recovery. There are companies which have more people developing backup. We believe, for example, Commvault has about 1,000 people, but they develop 1,000 engineers, but they develop backup for large enterprise. All of our people develop in cloud services first, and they make it available as cloud solutions, and then they also make it available in the same architecture as on-premise products. So every 2 months we have a new release. We just released milestone 4 recently, and that's one of the reasons for this announcement, which we made about Acronis backup services. But we will release backup milestone 5 at the end of June, milestone 6 at the end of August. And so there is constant innovation coming into the products. All of these products are based on Acronis AnyData engine, which is very well tested. So it's a good, complete backup solution. But they use common UI, web, and it's a web UI. And they are integrated in between them, and they're ready for upsell. So you sell backup, then you can sell disaster recovery. So that's what we are building. Acronis Cloud Data Platform, Acronis ABCDEF. By the end of the year, we have all these components well shipping. Acronis Archive Cloud, Acronis Backup Cloud, Acronis Cloud Storage, Acronis Disaster Recovery Cloud, Acronis eDiscovery Cloud, Acronis Files Cloud. And we intend to work for any and cloud workloads. Cloud workloads are different. It's designed to scale out, designed to really manage tens of millions of devices, enabling upsell, cross-sell, and flexible business model for service providers and our partner system integrators. Well integrated with variety of cloud systems, and it's open system, so not just backup, Acronis ABCDEF. Now, we want to be a technology company, and I really model many of the companies I've worked with against this wonderful company which is in business for a very long time called Intel. Intel is a company which builds the architecture and makes components, but ships it in a variety of ways so that the customer can pick which is a consumption model, and the partner can pick what is a partnership model. So all of our products are available as just on-premise product, SKU, but also as a service provider license agreements. They can be bought from a service provider. They are also every product of ours, even the one which is installed in the data center, and that's a big opportunity for partners in Singapore. On certain update, they are available to, they are able to back up to cloud. So you can sell cloud backup to the on-premise product. And they are also available as a service, and I'll talk about this. You can sell it in the same way as a normal product, but it's a service from our data center. And you can become a service provider and offer the product as a provider, and can also build a private cloud. It's actually quite easy to understand. It sounds really complicated, 5 models, but it's quite easy. Our software is really 3 components. So one component is the agent, which is installed on the device. The agent is the thing which is based on Acronis AnyData engine. One component is a backup management system, which is what customer use to configure his policies of backup and restore and disaster recovery. One component is automation, working across multiple customers, multiple offices, and that's a new component. And finally, one component is our own software-defined storage. We can store the data on any storage, but we recommend to store it on our software-defined storage. And so when you assemble your system, you can put this is always on the customer device, but everything else can be anywhere you want. We support any business model dependent on your desire as a partner or your desire as a customer. Now, if you talk about when we host components, we have 14 data centers today. More are coming all the time. We have strong presence here. As you can see, we have a data center in Singapore. We're opening one in Korea. It's almost open. We have one in Japan and one in Australia. So if you want to use our storage for data or our place to host the management system and automation system, we have presence in this region, and we intend to have more presence. It only takes 4 weeks to open a new data center. So that's a general talk. Now, there's 5 specific things which we have available today for partners to sell specifically in Singapore and in many other markets. So first of them is Acronis Cloud Backup products, which are sold as SKU. There are 2 products, Acronis Backup to Cloud. So any Acronis product can buy the SKU and back up to cloud. and Acronis backup service. This is just it's sold in the same way as our traditional product. There is no difference. For a partner, you just buy an electronic key, and it's just a SKU. So you place a purchase order, you get the key, you go to web download portal, you activate your product, you download the agent, install it on the product. Same way as Office 365. So very, very familiar product experience. The only difference is that in that case, customer will see browser-based interface, which will be served to the customer from our data center in Singapore. But that's very, very fast in Singapore. So the customer won't notice any difference. Might be slow for a product which is hosted in US, but it's very fast in Singapore. So it's the same way, the product sold the same way as our old product, but it's actually better for the customer, for the partner, because it's a recurring revenue stream. It's only 1 year subscription you sell to the customer. And it's actually better for the customer because, believe it or not, even though it looks expensive, it's actually much cheaper for the customer. Next thing is our wonderful Acronis disaster recovery service. Well, true disaster recovery is honestly only well enabled by the cloud. Here is how it works. We have a disaster recovery cluster in our data center in Singapore. And we install an appliance on a customer premise. And this appliance replicates the data locally and to the cloud. So we have a full copy of all of the customer service servers. And at any point, the copy of all of the servers can be started in the cloud on the virtual network for the purpose of being ready to do a failover or for the purpose of testing that it works. And in fact, client has ability to test that this works. Client has ability to do it once a week, test that actually his servers can be started in the data center, and actually that if failure happens, this failure really will be recovered. Now, before this product existed, in order to have a disaster recovery for one server, you have to have a one spare server. With this product, you can, dependent on how much of the RTO you want, you can have a recovery of 30 servers on one server, and you can have recovery of even 100 servers on one server because they don't fail at the same time. And that really enables this huge market, huge opportunity for partners. So it's 55% growth. Next year, $2.4 billion globally. Because without it, most of workloads don't get disaster recovered. And in fact, we have a market-leading product. So we are only behind SunGard, IBM, and NTT. And this is really a trick question because SunGard, NTT, and IBM, they are actually 10 to 100 times more expensive. So we are really a market leader, period. And it's a good average selling price. It's primarily sold to medium-sized enterprises in our case. So it's a $40,000 for 25 servers. The total TCO is higher than that because customers still need to manage the service and configure it. But it's still probably anywhere from 50 to 75% savings. So if they will do it in-house, they will spend $400,000. We believe the TCO with us is $100,000. And so as a result, many more systems can be disaster recovered. And it's a market leader. And we have white papers about it, so available for partners from Gartner and from Forrester. Next opportunity, which I think is a great opportunity for many system integrators, is to become service providers. And this is just a comparison. If you sell on-premise software, you resell of on-premise software, you sold to these 100 customers on-premise software, you make about 10.7 million in the period of 3 years. You sold software here, and then you sell maintenance, right? Now, if you become a service provider, you make 22 million, which is significantly more, 2 times more in 3 years. And you provide a better experience to the customer. Customer actually saves money because you run the service for the customer. If you resell our cloud service, you also have more margin, and you still provide the same savings for the customer. The next opportunity is to build private cloud. Many of the customers are not necessarily comfortable giving the data to third party, or many of them believe that they can do it in-house. And that's a business model which we enable as well. This is an example of actually an American university who is now considering to move to this model. They have 60,000 students and 15,000 faculty and staff, 75,000 workstation 1,000 servers, and they have about 16 petabytes of complete backup and disaster recovery infrastructure. You can sell them hardware and software required to do backup. And it's a good model for you, and it's a good product for them, because in the university, it's very difficult to have an enterprise solution, because university is many different groups. It's a central IT department. It's every faculty, every research lab. Students are separate. So it makes sense to offer it as a service from the university to students for free for some, to do chargeback for others. And finally, we currently really have two types of partners. And this presentation is primarily targeted to our traditional partners, to our distributors, resellers, and system integrators. But we also have service providers who are our partners, like ReadySpace in Singapore, like Rackspace globally. And for service providers, they can install our solution on premise, and they can offer a variety of backup and disaster recovery services. They can protect the servers they store in their data center. They can protect specialized solutions. They can also offer backup as a service to their customers. And it makes sense for companies like StarHub or SyncTel, because they have connection directly to a customer. They can also provide their own workstations. Many of the providers are good large IT users. And interestingly enough, they can also steal customers and partners from the other people, because they can back them up and restore in their own data center. With our universal restore capability, any provider can back up the server of the competitor, or help customer to back up the server at the competitor place and restore at their own place, and automatically configure drivers and IP addresses. Now, this is an opportunity for service providers, but it's also an opportunity for system integrators to sell to service providers. Any service provider, any data center company, any hosting company, any telco company can buy our product and make money and decrease churn with our product quite easily. And it's the only product which is designed for large-scale deployments with tens of thousands of servers and tens of millions of users. So I think these are great products, as I told you. And we really don't sell that many of those products yet in Singapore. But they represent a tremendous opportunity. So if you look at Singapore, we actually have very good business in Singapore. We just recently looked. We have almost 10% market share of backup market, actually 6% to 7%, based on Gartner estimate. And we have great businesses using our products in education, public services, transport, logistics, media, entertainment, oil and gas, legal, property, telcos, lifestyle and retail, technology, consumer electronics, all across the board. Singapore actually, in terms of market share, is one of our top markets in the world, right? So number one is Germany, number two is Japan. Singapore is in top 5 markets in terms of market share. So natural for us being a Singapore company, and also because we have great partners in Singapore. So NCS is our platinum partner, distributors Ixis and Atria, gold partners listed here, and of course new partners which I mentioned, ReadySpace, Telin, StarHub, and Icons Web Visions, which are our cloud services partners, our new generation partners, sort of. And yet, if you think about how Singapore market is served today, based on Gartner estimate, the backup market in Singapore is $45 million. If you think about it, it's about, say, $45 million of enterprise software. So that's how much is sold. But really, in order for backup to happen, customers buy all this other stuff, and they get this difficult solution, which is incomplete. But most importantly, the total TCO for these customers who bought in the first year is $800 million of the period of 3 years. So we, as a poor software company, get only $55 million if we will have 100% market share. But the customer actually spends $800 million and gets just backup, and it's very inconvenient. And so we believe that represents a huge opportunity for customers who can actually get to pay less and to get much more, much better RPO and much better RTO. For Acronis, because we save customers 40% in that example for Singapore, if we have 100% of Singapore market, which we hope to have at some point, we actually make 9 times more revenue, which is a lot of revenue to split with partners. And that's why we actually decided to change our partner program. We are launching our new partner program. We already launched it in US. We already launched it in Australia, New Zealand, I believe. And we are launching it in Malaysia. We're going to launch it in Singapore, July. And one of the main points of this program is the program brings even more attention to cloud products and provides much better margins on cloud products. In some cases, 3, 4, 5 times better margins because there is margin to share. And that allows partners to give more attention to the products and provide better service to customers. There is much more data and it's more valuable. World is becoming digital. Losing data is becoming a horrible disaster. It's much worse than losing money. Cloud makes it possible to do data protection easy, complete, and efficient. And we have these 5 opportunities for partners here right now. Backup cloud products, which are sold in the same way as old products. No difficulty selling them. Disaster recovery, great product. We are the market leader. Partners, every system integrator should become a service provider, and many of them will. Build private clouds for your customers. Most of your customers have distributed operations, have subsidiaries that are holding companies in this part of the world. And so having a centralized IT makes a lot of sense. And also service providers all should use our products. Cloud is a win-win-win for partners, customers. And so we additionally incentivize partners, providing much better margin on our cloud products. And one more thing is also important to remind all of the Singapore market is we're truly Singaporean. So this is my passport, but I mean, last time it's like, you're very brave, but you see they actually kind of deleted the number. So the rest is not so interesting. And I'm truly Singaporean. I'm proud to be Singaporean. We have headquarters here, and we believe we'll have more than 50% of our business from Singapore, not Singapore, but from this office in Asia Pacific and Japan and Middle East and Africa, which is run from this office. Not only, but we're opening R&D office here, 150 people by 2018. By that time, it's probably about a third of our R&D to be based here, maybe 25%. And we cooperate to open this R&D with all these wonderful organizations, and National University of Singapore, A-Star, Nanyang Technological University, SMU, Singapore University of Technology and Design, and EDB, of course. And I just want to point out that the huge opportunity for Singapore is a Smart Nation initiative. And Smart Nation initiative is a great initiative. We definitely want to help this initiative. It's about a lot of things. But one thing it is about data. It's to generate a lot of data. All of this data need to be archived, protected, stored, managed, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's it. That's all I can advise. Start benefiting from Acronis cloud products now. Thank you.